Today on the Bass Channel, we are checking out 10 of the most legendary pedals in history and seeing how they sound on bass.
It's gonna be legend. Wait for it. And I hope you're not lactose intolerant because the second half of that word is dairy.
Now, right out of the gate, I did say these are 10 of the most legendary pedals of all time. We are not, number one, we're not claiming that these are the 10 most legendary pedals of all time, just because there are so many pedals that kind of deserve that honor. We just tried to pick 10 of them that we thought right off the top of our heads were, yes, this is one of the pedals that you think of when you just think pedals. That was terrible. Now, these pedals are in no particular order, but first out of the gate, we're going to go with possibly the most ubiquitous pedal of all time, the Tube Screamer. Now, there have been countless Tube Screamers over the years made by Ibanez, made by every other pedal company in history, but Ibanez is still making them, so that's got to account for something, right? Now, in this case, we are going to focus on the TS-808 and the TS-9 because both of them are equally as legendary. The Tube Screamer originally came out in 1977, was made for Ibanez by Maxon, and you can even get a Maxon version even today if you want to. But let's check out what the Tube Screamer sounds like. To note the differences between the TS-808 and the TS-9, you may know that the TS-808 is the smoother, rounder sound and was made famous by players like Stevie Ray Vaughan with the Delta Blues kind of style, and the TS-9 is a little bit sharper, a little bit more 80s heavy metal, and was famously used sitting right on top of a Marshall amp during the recording of Ride the Lightning. Now, you may be hearing a little bit of attenuation of low end from the Tube Screamer, but the reports that the Tube Screamer completely kills off all low end are a little bit exaggerated. You'll hear the low end turned down a bit, but of course, it is what it is. If it works for you, fantastic, and if it doesn't work for you, then there are definitely ways that you can kind of spice it up with a little bit of clean low end. And in this version of the video, we've just got the regular bass into the pedal, bass out of the pedal, sound directly to your ear holes. But if you sign up as a member on this channel, there's an alternative version of the video that is processed with a high cut, low cut crossover for bass with that clean low end under it. So you might want to check that version out if you're so inclined. Next up on the list, the Boss CE2 Chorus. This little swirly blue guy is the first compact chorus pedal in that Boss enclosure that we've all known and loved for the last several decades. Came out in 1979. Now, some of you out there might say, oh, but the CE1 is even more legendary. But what we've done is we've got the Waza Craft version in this video, and if you can get your hands on a CE2 Waza, it's got a CE1 mode in it. So it kind of counts, right?
That is gonna be legend, wait for it, dairy adjacent. Legendary adjacent.
So while it is not exactly like its older brother, the CE1, which got its chorus sound from the Roland JC120 Jazz Chorus amplifier, the CE2 has possibly been the most copied, much like the Tube Screamer that we mentioned before. The CE2 is probably the most copied or replicated chorus circuit of all time. If you're hearing chorus, you might be hearing a CE2. Next up on the docket, we've got the fuzz, the ubiquitous. I use that word a lot, but man, a lot of these pedals really are ubiquitous. But we're talking about the Electro-Harmonix Big Muff. Now, the Big Muff's origins and timeline are a little bit confusing. Gee, thanks, Electro-Harmonix, for that. But the version that we're using in this video is your standard Big Muff Pi, New York City, just straight ahead Big Muff. Now, the originals back in the late 60s were later known, I believe, as the Triangle Muffs, which this one is not exactly a triangle muff. Electro-Harmonix has reissued several different kinds of Big Muffs in the ensuing years, especially recently with the Triangle Muff and the Op-Amp Muff and the Green Russian. But if you go into a store and you just say, I want a Big Muff, please, this is the flavor that you're probably thinking and you're probably talking about if you don't put any of the qualifiers on it. Now it's time to set your phaser to stun because we're talking about the MXR Phase 90. The Phase 90 is the quintessential little orange phaser pedal for the ages. But there's been a couple of versions of them, much like Electro-Harmonix with the Big Muff. MXR has put out several phase insert number here. We got the Phase 45, the Phase 90, the Phase 99, the Phase 95, etc., etc. And even the Phase 90 itself has come in script version, block version, with an LED, without an LED. It's just been in production for a long, long time. Now, while the script version is a little bit more subtle, a little bit more airy, the Phase 90 block is kind of the standard. You walk in, again, you walk into a store, you say, I would like a Phase 90, please. They're going to hand you an MXR Phase 90 with a block logo, and that's the sound that we're hearing today. Now, the Phase 90, especially on bass, can be heard in several places, like most famously Stranglehold and the OJ's For the Love of Money. And, of course, anyone who's ever heard Eddie Van Halen has definitely heard a Phase 90 a few times here and there. Now, with that said, you probably get a little bit of sense as to why this is one of the most legendary pedals of all time. Now, it's time to get our distortion on with the RAT. So it all started in the late 70s with Proco creating the RAT, right? Well, over the years, much like other pedals on this list, there have been several permutations of the RAT. You've got the RAT1, you've got the RAT2, you've got the Turbo RAT, the U-Dirty RAT, the Fat RAT, the Juggernaut, etc. But what we're looking at today is the RAT, which is technically a RAT2. And that is the one that you can get kind of at the store. You go in and you say, I'd like a RAT, please, and they'll hand you this little box. Everybody's familiar with the 3-knob setup, the filter knob that's like a reverse tone knob, and so forth. So let's first take a listen to the bog standard RAT that you can buy today. Also, in the RAT lineup, since there are so many different versions of the RAT over the years, we decided to throw a JHS Packrat in the mix, which has settings for just about every RAT variation you can think of. By the way, Josh Scott has a very thorough history of the RAT video. If you want to go check that out, that's not our video, but we just thought it was fascinating. So go check that out.
Here goes the box.
All right, folks, it's time to strap into the Wayback Machine because we're going to 1976 and back to Electro-Harmonix to find the Memory Man. Now, the Memory Man is a delay with modulation built in, made famous by The Edge, so if you want to sound like The Edge, you too should buy this pedal. But the version that we're looking at today is the modern, compact, pedalboard-friendly version of the Memory Man Deluxe, and that offers a little bit extra in that the delay time has been increased from a max of 300 milliseconds all the way up to 550 milliseconds. So you got over a half a second of delay in here with your modulation and all that other good stuff. So the Memory Man Deluxe originally debuted in 1980 after the original Memory Man in 76. This version of the Memory Man Deluxe has a little bit different internal components, because really you need to fit it on your pedal board, but is for all intents and purposes the same architecture as the Memory Man Deluxe from 1980. Next up on the list is another orange box of goodness. You know it, you love it. It came out in 1978 and has been virtually unchanged in the 40 plus years since. I mean, hell, one of the most famous players of this pedal made it popular in 1991. So it's been going strong ever since, and it's still one of the cheapest pedals you can buy. Of course, I can only be talking about the Boss DS1 Distortion. So obviously I'm referring in 1991 to Kurt Cobain and Nirvana playing the DS1 Distortion and making it super popular with teenagers the world over. But a lot of the 80s shreddy metal guys really like the DS1 also. Yngwie Malmsteen, Joe Satriani, John Petrucci,
Johnny DeMarco.
The fact of the matter is that this pedal is still going strong. Over 10 million of them have been sold since their inception, and it might be the single most popular distortion pedal, if not any pedal, of all time. The next pedal is not exactly the first of its kind again, but it is kind of the one that became the one. And we're talking, of course, about the GCB 95 Dunlop Crybaby Wah pedal. There's not a whole lot more that I can say about the GCB 95 Crybaby that I didn't already say up in this video from last year's Walktober, but suffice it to say that it is kind of the one and only for many players. Now, the Crybaby is of course not a bass pedal, and so you're going to hear in our samples a little bit of low-end disappearance. But again, if you become a member of the channel, you can get access to a version of this video where the low end is nice and clean and blended in there so that you can hear what it would sound like in a rig with a crossover or in a rig with a bass dry blend, which is probably how you'd want to incorporate it into your rig. Now, it's difficult to talk about legendary pedals without talking about the elephant in the room, or at least the half man, half horse in the room, and that is, of course, the Klon Centaur. We do not have an original Klon Centaur because, well, YouTube doesn't pay that well. But what we're using today is the Wampler Tumnus, which is a pretty decent, new, and compact version of a Klon Centaur. Lots of manufacturers make Centaurs, or Klon clones as they're called, Klones, and that includes like the J-Rocket Archer, the Way Huge Conspiracy Theory, the Idiot Box Honton, etc. Now, the fact that the Centaur is kind of one of those holy grail pedals and it's, really expensive and really hard to get a hold of, even the original maker of the Centaur made his own kind of affordable version because he doesn't even like the fact that they're very gatekeepy and hard to get a hold of and super expensive and all that. So one of the things that you'll notice about a Klon Centaur is the fact that it will, much like a tube screamer, it'll attenuate your low frequencies a little bit. But good news, in the Wampler version that we're using, the Tumnus has really great low-end retention, at least to our ears and to our playing samples. And if you want more EQ flexibility, there's also a Tumnus Deluxe. Finally, on this list of 10 legendary pedals on bass, the only bass pedal on the list, and that is the SansAmp Bass Driver DI. Now, we're using in this video the SansAmp BDDI V2, which has a couple of features that the original did not have. And that includes a mid knob, and a switchable mid frequency, and a switchable bass frequency for the bass knob. So we know this is a bass pedal and we are the bass channel, but we would even include this pedal in our list if we weren't a bass specific channel just because of its ubiquity. Ever since the original version of the SansAmp came out with no switches, no knobs, just a box, all the way through all of the various iterations of the bass driver DI and the paradriver and the RBI and the RPM and all that, the SansAmp pedal, which, the bass driver DI, let's be honest, is in probably every recording studio in the world and is on so many bass tracks that you would lose count if you tried to count them. Now, by no means is this all of the legendary pedals of all time, but which was your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. Let us know any pedals that you might think of for another list of legendary pedals. And yeah, thanks for joining us. Again, my name's Dave. This is the Bass Channel, and we'll see you next time. I ummed a lot less.
Yeah.
Yay.